The question is that grievance has been noted, and I call the member for Riverina.
Well, I'd certainly like to join the member for Dunkley on her campaign to reduce plastic waste in our environment, because I think what she spoke about has a lot of support in the community, in the wider community across Australia. And indeed, when you consider, as she said, the amount of plastic in our ocean environment, it is such a shame, such a pity, and we need to do more. That huge whirlpool of rubbish, of debris in the Pacific is a modern disgrace. There is absolutely no question. But I will take her up on one thing. This is a grievance debate, so let's be egregious about something, and that is her claim that if you put solar panels on your rooftop, then you're paying less bills the following day. That is not the case. That is fanciful. That is folly. You have to pay the solar panels off, and whilst there might be some recompense in the long term, in the long run, it is not going to happen overnight, as she suggested. And don't just take my word for it. Let's ask anybody who currently lives in Broken Hill, because on Thursday, 17 October, a severe storm knocked over 7 transmission towers in the far west of New South Wales. And that caused a power outage which lasted a fortnight, a full fortnight. It wasn't until the 31st of October that power was restored, and people were being encouraged to reduce their power, to turn off unnecessary implements. But at the same time, they were also being told to turn off their solar panels because they didn't want to put more energy into a grid that was already reduced severely by the impact of these storms, reduced substantially by the fact that 7 towers had been knocked over. And it brings home very much the folly of being reliant too much on renewable energy, on just solar and wind. And I appreciate that Broken Hill is connected via that big interconnector, that big transmission line, and I appreciate that's how they get their power. But this should be an energy superpower. Broken Hill, goodness knows it, BHP, which had its genesis in that far-flung New South Wales town. So much wealth for this nation has been produced from that community, and yet you think in this day and age that it can be knocked out for a fortnight is just so hard to believe. And we talk about having the national rational discussion about nuclear, and we have to. We have to, because if you place all your eggs in one basket, and this is the rush to renewables that those opposite would want us have to do, you are going to see more power outages of the like that we saw in Broken Hill last month. Labor's approach requires imposing 58 million solar panels, 3,500 new industrial wind turbines, and up to 28,000 kilometres of new transmission lines across the country. So that might all be well and good for those city electorate types, because they're not going to have their vista disturbed by these massive transmission lines. Energy experts have warned the cost of Labor's rollout will be between, wait for this, $1.2 trillion and $1.5 trillion. Now that is a lot of money, and of course Labor comes to this argument and says, well, what's nuclear going to cost? How long is it going to take? Well, yes, it will take some time, some considerable time, but the Snowy Hydro scheme wasn't built in a day, nor was Rome. It took a good quarter of a century to get that magnificent hydroelectricity project completed. But Snowy Hydro also, let's consider that it wasn't necessarily a power project. It was first and foremost an irrigation project, and a lot of people forget that. But the word of warning from what happened at Broken Hill last month should be very much on on the towers. And if we are going to build, as the energy experts suggest, 28,000 kilometres of transmission lines, why shouldn't we pay the extra, make the extra investment and underground those lines to prevent such calamities as having the towers knocked over, as having communities the size of Broken Hill completely out of power, or all but, for up to 2 weeks. This created such an impost on community members. And indeed, you consider the likes of people who one of whom was administering his own at-home 6-hour-long dialysis treatment 3 times a week. Try doing that when there's no power. But this was the case for kidney patient Leroy Johnson. He's trying to manage his medical condition amid rolling blackouts. Now, you have to feel sorry for this fellow, but he wasn't alone. You had businesses just completely knocked out of operation because of the situation, and it just went on and on and on. And there is great folly in that. And what we're also seeing across rural and regional Australia are situations where prime agricultural land is being taken up with these massive solar farms. And again, city types won't understand, they won't get it, they won't care, because it's not their vista that is being destroyed by these massive solar farms. And you take the case of Maxwell residents. Maxwell is on the Holbrook Road on the way to Mangapla, south of Wagga Wagga, where the Kirkpatrick family, Don and Leslie and their daughter Emily, are quite concerned about the solar farm that is going to be plonked, and yes, I mean plonked, right in front of their farm. But another one now being slated for approval at The Rock. Now, a development application was submitted to Wagga Wagga City Council by Green Gold Energy Proprietary Limited. Don't you just love the names? Green Gold. Let's be a bit patriotic. Now, they might be a very good company, and I'm sure they are, but all too often, these are foreign companies that have no substantial link or understanding of a local area, and they come in with these wonderful names. They come in with these very articulate government relations people and community liaison people. You never see them again. They come in, they talk up the project, and then off they go. But the fact is, they're putting forward plans for a $5.9 million solar farm to be constructed at 1,000 Burks Creek Road. And again, it's prime agricultural land, and the Kirkpatricks are quite concerned. But one thing I'm really desperately worried, as the Kirkpatricks and so many others are too, about is the fact that they are considered state priority projects. And so what happens is that the state government just rides roughshod over the local council. It doesn't matter whether the development application even has to be put in or whatever. The state government just takes control of the project, says, well, it's state significant, and then the project just gets the tick of approval by the New South Wales government. And local councils don't get a say. They don't get any input into what is a major eyesore, as many would have it, on the local environment. And that is the case on Holbrook Road, and the Kirkpatricks are rightly upset. You've then got projects right from Upper Lachlan through Yass Valley, through the Snowy Valleys, with the transmission lines going from Bannaby and Big Hill right through. And I appreciate that we have to build nation-building infrastructure. I get that. I get that the energy grid is in more demand. I understand that. But there is a great folly in rushing to do this project and not taking into account what happened at Broken Hill, not taking into account the fact that undergrounding of these power transmission lines might be the better option, albeit at a far greater cost. but we have to consider the local environment. We have to consider the implications of what happens, as in a complete knockout of the power system when you've got dialysis treatment people, and we have to consider the future.